Hello, welcome to Lil's Vintage World. This video is book review videos of 3 more of the Furrowed Middlebrow books published by Dean Street Press. So, I'm going to start and get right into it. I'm going to start with kind of like leading it from least favourite, although still really enjoyed it, up to favourite, because I'm going to hold you in suspense. So, starting off, I have an Elizabeth Fair, and this is The Native Heath, first published in 1954. Has a really nice cover. Really like this cover. So The Native Heath is set in a village. Actually, all 3 of these are very villagey. Yeah, so this is set in a village, and we have a woman called Julia who inherits a house in which she spent part of her childhood, and she is like, oh, I wonder why I've inherited and why other people haven't inherited it. And so she invites her cousin to come and live with her, and there's already a cousin that lives in the village, and it's about the comings and goings of village life. There's a bit of romance in there, there's a bit of drama in there. It's a very village setting life and all the comings and goings and how these newcomers kind of shake up the dynamics. I liked this. I feel very safe with Elizabeth Fair. Elizabeth Fair, this is my second one that I've read of hers, and neither one that I've read, she's blown my socks off. But I always feel like I'm in a safe pair of hands. I know when I go into Elizabeth Fair, I know it's probably going to be about 3.5 stars, something like that. It's good, it's not blowing my mind, my socks aren't being blown off, but I like it. It's easy to read, it's safe, it's enjoyable, keeps me entertained, and sometimes that's all you want. I like Elizabeth Fair, recommend her, and I will keep reading her in the future, you know? She's good. The next book, I loved this one. This is Dear Hugo by Molly Clavering. I've never read Molly Clavering before. This is from 1955, and this book is about a woman called Sarah. I think it's Sarah because it doesn't have a H. I'm going to say Sarah. But a woman called Sarah who comes to a village. I told you they're all very villagey. And people think that she's very much a stranger to the village. And although she physically is, she's not quite the stranger that people think she is. Because she's bought a cottage in that village specifically. So her, what would have been husband, they didn't get a chance to get married. He died during the war. His name was Ivo. And the village in which she now lives is his childhood village. So she's come to live and reside in this village as some type of closure, to feel closer to him, part of the grieving process. It's not really too deeply psychologically explored, but you can very much see why someone would do that. You know, she was very much happy with him, very much in love, very much hoping for a really nice future with him, and of course things happen and unfortunately he died. And each chapter of this book starts with Dear Hugo, because every single chapter of this book is a letter that she is writing to Hugo. Hugo was Ivo's brother, so it would have been her brother-in-law. And she is sending letters to Hugo saying about the comings and goings of the village, and a lot of people in the village haven't changed, and so he still knows them and he knows the places and things like that. And there's changes in her life as well. Her second cousin, who's a teenager, he's 13, he hasn't had the best start in life, he comes to live with her. He is lovely. I don't usually love children in books, kind of, I'm like, oh no thank you, but I actually really enjoyed his presence in the book, and it was lovely to have with Sarah with him. And from what I've just said, you probably think this is a sad book, but it's not sad. It's actually really quite a funny, cheery, it's a very heartwarming read. It was just spectacular. I really enjoyed it. I really much struggled to put this down. It was just fantastic, and I have to say the ending was top-notch. It's not a fairy tale ending, but it's the ending that I thought was absolutely perfect for this character, especially when you kind of go on the journey of grief and grieving. with her. And I have to say, what I particularly loved about this book, so this book published in 1955, but set in 1950, starts in 1951 and goes through to 1953, I think, is we talk about the war, and it is about the repercussions of the war. So it isn't just going and looking at a history book and going, oh, the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. That's not the reality of life. Yes, a little bit of paper was signed in 1945 and, you know, war was over, thank you. But the reality was, for actually millions and millions of people, the war didn't end when that bit of paper was signed and it was peace. That didn't happen. You've still got people that are battling PTSD, which is discussed in here. People who are grieving loved ones, which is discussed in here. And the repercussions of the bombings and the repercussions of rationing and living on this teetering edge, which often isn't really discussed enough, I don't think. Particularly into the 1950s, people think, okay, yeah, there was a little bit afterwards, but actually the real aspect of this is war had a knock-on effect for so many years, and it's discussed in this book, and I really liked that. So yeah, 4.5 stars for this. Fabulous, loved it. And then last but not least, this was a 5-star book for me, if you can't guess, and that is The Fair Misfortune by D.E. Stevenson. I have read a few D.E. Stevensons now. I do really like her, Dorothy Emily. I have read Miss Bunkle's book. I have read Miss Tim's. Yeah, this is the best book I've ever read by her. And this book was never going to be published. I'll just drop that little bomb. So, Dorothy Emily Stevenson wrote this book in 1930. It is Dorothy Emily, isn't it? Yeah. Saying it and then it's not. Yeah. This book was written by her in 1938. She sent it off and it was like, no, thank you. And at the beginning, there is letters between her and her literary agent explaining why it is not going to be published. Essentially, it was too old-fashioned. If you get this book, which I suggest you do, do not read the letters first. I read the letters first. What a boo-boo to make. And it spoiled a bit that happens like partway through the book. So yeah, don't spoil yourself. Read the letters at the end. But yeah, this was never going to be published. So from 1938 onwards, hasn't been published. In 2011, I think, Grey Ladies, which is a publishing house, which is similar to Furrowed, Middlebrow, they republish books that have gone out of print. They put it in print for the first time, and now, 2022, Furrowed, Middlebrow have brought out in this beautiful, I mean, look at that edition. Anyway, stop waffling, Lil. What is it about? The Fair Misfortune is about a woman called Miss Jane Fortune who comes to live in a little village. And her plan is to open up a little tea shop, and she attracts the attention of a couple of the young male residents. And then her sister comes to the village and gives the village a bit of a shake-up too. I loved this book. Yes, thank you very much. This is so me. I love her writing anyway. I just generally get on with D.E. Stevenson's writing, hands down. So easy to read. But what I loved about this is actually what I think someone put. So I love reading negative comments, right? And I went on Goodreads and I was reading the negative comments about this book. And someone's negative comment is the reason why I loved it. Now, I'm not going to get the wording of this perfect, but I'll get as close as I can. They said that they either said it's like an old or a vintage Mills and Boon book. In other words, it's like an old romance rom-com type book. And you know what? That's why I loved it. I like a Mills and Boon every now and then. Why not? Not the modern ones, don't read those. But I like the vintage ones. This is very old-fashioned. It's so predictable. I knew what was going to happen. Did I care? Nope. Did I just enjoy the ride? Absolutely. I loved it. If you are someone that likes to read the rom-coms or watch a rom-com every now and then, but you love vintage, you'll love this. It's a 1930s rom-com and it was absolutely spectacular. What can I say? I loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Thought it was great. I can't say anymore. So there we have it. Those are 3 of the Furrowed Middlebrow books that I have read recently. All 3 I enjoyed. All 3 I recommend. Please let me know in the comment section if you have read any of these 3. Or, as you know, I do really enjoy reading these books published by Furrowed Middlebrow, so let me know if you have read any recently and what you thought of them. Is there any in the series that you recommend to me? Always after recommendations. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you. So thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I shall see you soon for the next one. Bye for now.